You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. All right, folks, from the studios spread around the country of Mission Log the Orville, the show where we dig into each and every episode of the Orville, and on occasion have well-accomplished guests with us like Beaker and Doug Drexler from the Orville, Star Trek fame, Academy Award winner. Lovely here to have you today. Doug, how's Beaker doing, man?
Oh, he's having a great time. He's having a great time bossing me around.
That's amazing. 43 years old.
Yeah, we've been together 43 years.
So let me see. That would put that 1980, 81-ish. So sort of towards the end of the run of the Muppet Show. So at this point, we've had Beaker and
was on a movie. It was a Michael Mann film called Manhunter.
Right.
And that's I didn't go out saying.
I was going to ask. I
didn't go out looking for a parrot or pet at all. I was working at that North Carolina Film Corporation.
Sure. At
the time it was Dino De Laurentiis, and I needed acrylic paints for makeup, and found this hobby store in the middle of the woods. And this guy who wasn't even a year old yet was in a too small of a cage. And I'm looking at the acrylic paint, and he's behind me. And every time I'd look at him, he'd get all cute. And there was just, a connection right away. And I just couldn't leave him. Number one, I felt like he needed help.
Yes.
Right.
That cage was too small. And there was just, the spark of intelligence in the eyes.
You literally... it was kismet. You were there at the right time. You heard the call. You answered it.
My curse. This thing is a lot of work, and he can be pretty cranky sometimes. He thinks he's 7 feet tall and weighs 300 pounds, and he'll chase me around the house. I can't even open an envelope. I made the mistake of entertaining him by wadding up wads of paper and throwing it across the room, and he'd run after it and rip it to shreds.
Oh no.
And now if I even pick up an envelope to pay a bill, he comes tearing in from the other room and starts attacking my ankles. You hear that? He laughs.
That's awesome. Man, I don't think anybody tuning into TrekCon number 5 needs any introduction to you. And we always love talking pets on here.
But you know what, though? Do introduce him, Mike, just for posterity. I think you should. Yeah, I think
Born in New York City, raised on Long Island, started a Star Trek store in Manhattan, headed out to L.A. to try to get in on the filming or view the filming of Star Trek the Motion Picture, and then the rest is history, man. Realized I could make a living doing this, and a living he has made, including an Academy Award and work on Star Trek, the director's cut, Star Trek Next Gen, Star Trek Voyager, kind of on a freelance or non-paid version, I think, for Voyager.
Well, I'm kind of starting to think that maybe I'm a Q. Because I've been on so many starships.
I think you and Jerry Ryan are tied for the longest careers.
Yeah, but to be on multiple iterations of Star Trek, I think that you could definitely be the Q.
But I was also on Battlestar Galactica.
That you were.
Doing visual effects with Gary Hutzel. And what the hell else? Okay, so Orville, all those iterations of Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, I have to be a Q.
I think you're a Q.
Yeah. Or a traveler.
I think I'm a Q. I don't want to be a traveler. They're too goody two shoes,
So speaking of that, again, I think most people listening right now or watching probably are familiar with Memory Alpha, but I loved this quote that Ira Stephen Bear, and this is at the header of the page. To truly understand Doug Drexler, you have to go beyond the obvious. Sure, he's a talented illustrator and graphic designer, but the key to Doug is his eyes. Look at them closely. Give us a good shot, Doug. Look at them closely, and you'll discover a Merlin the Magician looniness lurking beneath the surface. I'm convinced Doug knows secrets to the universe that the rest of us can't even imagine. He's also a big Sinatra fan, so you know the guy has taste.
Oh, there we go.
Vic Fontaine was really a gift.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Ira from Ira. It was, what's his name? Who played Vic Fontaine? Oh God.
Jimmy Darren.
Right. He was originally on the Time Tunnel in the 60s.
Right.
Which I love that Time Tunnel set. So all of the coasters in Vic's club had the Time Tunnel logo on them. I don't know if he ever noticed it or realized it, but for us it was, exciting.
That's where you got that glint in your eye.
Well, so I was going to alter that glint in your eye. It said that you know things about the universe. I think you're like the engineer version of an artist, where you're like, okay, I'm going to solve that problem instead. Or I think I can see what I want it to be, but I'm going to figure out how to get there. Is that more accurate?
That sounds really great.
Sure. Okay, great. Great, cool.
So yeah, I'll take it.
Beaker says, accept it, right?
Well,
he looks great against the black shirt, I have to say.
He's a handsome baby. He really is. He knows he's the star of the show.
The camera. Here, pay attention.
He's got eyes that glint as well.
He does. He knows secrets to the universe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Supernatural.
So Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, number of films, including Manhunter, like you said. Three Men and a Little Lady. You worked on that. Where did you sign on to that because you thought Nimoy was going to direct that one too? Or
no, I don't mean to meet Leonard Nimoy. I've seen him so many times. He's like old hat. The best part was Ted Danson.
Really?
We did like an 86-year-old makeup on him, and he was hilarious. He was like everything you wanted him to be. He had you laughing all the time. And we just had the best time with that guy. I miss him, it was years and years ago, and I still miss him from that.
Did you kind of full circle with him, Admiral Perry on the Orville, though?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I chatted with him for a few minutes on Orville. I hadn't seen him since, it was pretty remarkable. Well, the other one, of course, was also the other Admiral. Help me.
Victor Garber.
Yes.
Admiral Halsey.
Victor Garber, I worked with. He did a TV movie where he played Liberace.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was really good.
Played the straight version.
And we really got to know him then, and I got to see him on Orville as well. It's really great when they still remember your name after, almost 30 years.
That's actually probably why they've worked as long as they have, because they actually are genuine humans, right?
Well, they really are. The most important film in my life really was Dick Tracy, because that's what brought me out to LA. I mean, I'd been working in movies for about 10 years, I guess, by the time we came out to LA. It started with the makeup master Dick Smith, did The Exorcist and Emma Day.
Oh, wow.
Like the greatest. I was lucky to work with him. That started my career. He lived in Larchmont, New York, even though he was doing Hollywood pictures. But
you knew that you wanted to be in this field, or did you happen into it? I
think like everyone really wants to be in the field. I don't know anybody who didn't grow up wishing that they could work in movies and television.
Well, I guess what I mean, your specific specialty. So you grew up watching Star Trek. You shared with us before we started this amazing, just sweetest story about a kid who was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about Star Trek. But was there a part of you that was like, okay, I want to be the guy that lights the thing. I want to be the guy that makes the stars look real. Or did you seek out this particular path into film?
Well, it was always design that was interesting to me. I didn't actually, I knew all about makeup artists, but I never actually grew up wanting to be a makeup artist. I think a designer, someone who drew designs. That I thought I was going to be a comic book artist for a while. Thank God. Because that's not the road to security, being a comic book artist, So fortunately that didn't work out, but I had been collecting articles on effects, makeup effects, all kinds of stuff. And in those days you couldn't go on the internet and type in life casting and get 10,000 videos on how to do it.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. You really had to probably seek it out. So then to get to work with the man that you worked with,
you had to hunt it. You had to hunt it down.
Wow.
And so I had for years. I'd been collecting articles from magazines, like they were almost like fanzines for visual effects. Like
Right.
Cinemagic was once a fanzine. Cine Fantastique was going full tilt then, and they had articles, but it was really hard information to come by. And I was working at an architectural supply in Manhattan called Charette, and the boss decided that he was going to have a Halloween party. So I knew I had to do something different. And I dug out some articles that I had on how to do a prosthetic Planet of the Apes makeup.
wow.
I just decided I was going to do that. And I found out that I could sculpt. I didn't know I could sculpt. That came with the drawing. And I really enjoyed making molds too. And the whole process of doing a life cast of a person, doing the sculpture, making the molds, running the foam latex, gluing it on, painting it, adding hair. And it was a revelation to me. It was a real huge epiphany for me. I became totally hooked, and I was just making molds on everything, If the cat would stand still, I'd make a mold on the cat. Because now they have, you get the same sense of, wow, I'm creating something when you have a printer now,
Oh, there's something phenomenal about being able to make that so that everyone could have something like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
and it's very much related to mold making.
Yes.
When I started doing mold making, I was able to make a mold and a copy of anything, including someone's face. So that's like a very powerful, exciting feeling. So I did that Planet of the Apes makeup, and I was hooked, and I started reading everything I could. And I think what really blew my mind was in The Exorcist, Dick Smith did the possessed, horribly possessed Linda Blair in the thing. But I never realized that that wasn't the makeup of the movie. I saw Max von Sydow, who played the 86-year-old priest, Father Merrin.
Right.
The phone went off, and he hates the phone. He goes,
Oh, Beaker. Sorry, Beaker.
Okay. So I saw Max von Sydow in another movie like 4 years later, and he was young. And I'm like, wait a minute. What the? And I found out that Dick Smith did a makeup for Max von Sydow to make him 86 years old, and it never even occurred to me.
Wow. Because actually, that's surprising, because how often do you to this day even see old age makeup and go, oh, that's old age makeup? And to have achieved that at that point and know exactly what to do to not make us even guess that.
That's what he did.
Wow.
Character makeup was really, like he did Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain for an NBC special, and that Hal Holbrook actually took it on the road. I've seen him do it live.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, it's one of the most, Dick's makeup for him is absolutely, and you would never think that his whole face was rubber,
Wow.
But it doesn't matter how much better the technical part gets. It depends on who the artist is, Of course, soon AI will be doing everything anyway. So,
or they were able to achieve pretty good Mark Twain makeup on Lower Decks with Boimler and Rutherford when they did their Lower Decks.
Well,
crossover. Might be more for people in the audience if you haven't seen it.
Times Arrow on Next Generation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was my chance to do Mark Twain.
That's amazing.
As a matter of fact, Jerry, who was Mark Twain, was so good as Mark Twain. I said, Hal Holbrook takes us on the road. You could do that too if you wanted to. And he did. He took it on the road.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to come back?
Yes, please, Beaker.
Was that nominated for an Emmy? The makeup for Mark Twain? I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. That's
think
too bad. That was well
I
deserved.
got nominated with Mike a couple of times and didn't win any of those times. But he's got you go to his house, he's got 12 Emmys, He collects them.
Yeah. At a certain point, they become cumbersome, I'm sure.
And if I remember right, when you joined Star Trek: The Next Generation, you had already won the Emmy for the Academy Award for Dick Tracy.
Hadn't won yet.
You hadn't won yet.
When I first came to the show, I came directly from Dick Tracy to Next Generation.
That was quite a get.
I begged him. to let me come work on the show. And he's like,
Really?
"Oh, features, you know?" And I'm like, no, you don't understand that. For me, it's always been about Star Trek. This is where I'm supposed to be, you know? So I had mentioned this to Mike a couple of months ago, and he said, well, that was a no-brainer, you know, which is great to hear that years later.
Oh, that's actually very sweet. Yes.
Yeah, well, Mike Westmore is he is wonderful, you know. I mean, working with him for the years that I was on Next Generation was, you know, one of the great makeup experiences, you know. First, it was Star Trek, which was amazing. And when I first got there, Gene Roddenberry was still there.
Right.
I would see him on stage, and he even asked to talk to me. I was like, "What? What does he want to talk to me for?" Just to tell me what a great job we did on Dick Tracy, which,
oh my goodness, how sweet is that?
very unusual. Usually, producers and directors do not want to lavish you with any praise at all because they think you're going to think too much of yourself. So it's just
Sure.
well, this is what you do. You know, you don't need to be thanked or told you did a good job.
Yes, I can understand that mindset.
That's exactly, you just described the chemistry between Jessica and me. So she never wants to tell me good job because she thinks I'll get full of myself.
Wow.
I kid. I think
I guess this is the opportunity to air our grievances.
No,
is it my turn now?
Let it out.
Let's go.
Let it out, Mike.
It wouldn't.
Come on.
It's only funny because it's furthest from the truth. I think we have a great professional relationship.
Okay.
I'm actually in the middle of writing my memoir, and the funniest, craziest stories are from the makeup days. You know, because I did makeup for like 13 years. I was done with makeup pretty much. You know, I see so many of my friends who are makeup artists now for 40 something years. I'm like, God, why would you do that? Be nothing. There's so many interesting things going on all around, and you actually have the opportunity to move into other things like I did.
Right.
So I wanted to talk to you about that, you know, more granularly, and then also like on a bigger picture, you know, level too, because you did move from makeup to design work. And then you also made the change from, you know, adapted from, you know, physical effects to CGI as well. So after makeup, what came next?
Well, I mean, makeup got me working, got me in, you know, and then I came to Next Generation. And of course, I knew all about the show. I knew who Mike Okuda was. Bob Justman had become a friend of mine. I spent, when you're a makeup artist, you spend ungodly numbers of hours on stage.
Wow.
You know, you could be in the art department and you're visiting the sets. But when you're a makeup artist, you are living on the Enterprise.
Wow.
You know, and you would be there, you know, 15, 16 hours sleeping in sick bay. Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Trouble for that.
Oh, come on.
Cosmo Genovese, who was the script supervisor, I got the idea from him. I was walking through the corridors, which I loved to do, and I could hear snoring. And I look in the sick bay, and Kazi is on one of the diagnostic beds with a handkerchief over his face.
Genius. I love this.
So I started sleeping on that bench right outside of Crusher's office, underneath that painting.
Oh, yeah.
I used to sleep there, and then a memo finally came through from Mary Howard about no more sleeping on the sets.
It makes sense, but what else are you supposed to do?
But the thing was that I lived on the ship, you know, and I looked at every part. I looked at it behind the walls and between the walls, and
Wow.
you know, and so and I knew that the L cars were beautiful. But once I was on stage, I was able to look at all of them from inches away. And I'm thinking, because I knew who Mike was and I'd seen him. And then we finally chatted on stage. But when I looked at those graphics, I was like, wow, this guy really is serious. He knows this isn't science fiction graphic design. This is like aviation logic design going on here and space exploration. Mike knows all that stuff, and you could see it in the graphics.
Wow.
I often see graphics that are done that are just pure science fiction. And the same with spaceships too. The best Star Trek starships have aviation logic. aircraft logic.
Yeah, I think one of the things that drew me to it as a kid was, and it's changed through different parts of my life. When I was younger, it was kind of a cool sci-fi action adventure show, and then as you get a little bit older, you realize that there's application to viewing the human condition from a global perspective, and then how you treat your relationship. So different phases of life, I got different things out of it. But as a kid, growing up, sort of on the tail end of the space race, you could see, like in my mind, that it just completely extrapolated the technology that we had from, the Wright brothers to airline aviation to the space race, like out into the future. And it just sort of followed that path. And it looked like a logical extension of the technology we had at the time.
Well, it really all comes from the fact that Gene Roddenberry was a pilot of a B-17 during World War II in the Pacific. And Matt Jeffries, the production designer, was a flight engineer on a B-17 over Africa during World War II. So those guys, they understand technology, they understand aviation, and that type of stuff was important to both of them. Matt was known as an aviation artist. He did Flying Magazine, and he worked at the Library of Congress, for their aviation branch, identifying planes found in barns and stuff like that. So that came through in all the design work, even when the designs often were very theatrical on the original series, because of lack of money, really. And plus, people's televisions didn't have the kind of definition that they have today, so you could get away with it. But that's where that comes from. And I see lots of science. I mean, especially back then, it was very unusual. Usually, if there was a TV show with a spaceship, they would use submarine parts and stuff, But Star Trek is really Star Trek fans who love technology love the ships, because if they're done right, the closer you look at them, the more they reveal about themselves. And people who are part of the club know where everything should be. And if it isn't there, then you've lost their respect.
So have you heard about the recently uncovered ship design, like the actual ship that used to be on Gene Roddenberry's desk that they think they just found? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, that was the one that Nimoy's holding in the big poster.
Yes. So there's a group of these detail-oriented people, like you're saying, that are so excited that this has been found, because they can't find the original color of the ship, the Enterprise, in order to recreate it. And they're hoping, because the TVs and all the, how it was shot, they just can't find what the original color of the NC 100, I can't even remember it, but I had it and it's all gone now. But you know what I'm saying? They're trying to get this perfect paint color.
Well, it's no secret anymore, since the Air and Space Museum, when they did their restoration, not only identified all the colors, but also different layers of colors they identified.
Oh, okay. So I'm behind on my news then.
I'm just like at the front of the wave. That's all.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I do think it's fair to say that there will be more to be learned from an examination of the 3-foot model.
Well, no one I know has ever examined it, so yes.
Yeah.
So we do have a wonderful question in our chat from Rashid, who asked, what is your favorite makeup? Hold on, I had it and it's gone again. Where is the Rashid question? What's the makeup that you were most proud of doing on TNG?
Probably Lal.
Really?
Well, yeah, I mean, she was like this. She looked like an Academy Award, and she had no features.
Yeah, sort of the featureless version of Lal before she was.
It's a head to toe makeup, and I did that, but Mike and I designed the pieces. He designed the face and the chest piece, and he was talking about making kind of a pair of foam latex shorts for Leonard Crowfoot to put on to hide all his naughty bits. And I just felt that doing that, I said, it's going to be cutting across the musculature, and you're going to see it. I'm afraid you're going to see it. And I said, what I think we should do is make kind of a cod piece, a prosthetic cod piece, that then wrapped around between his legs and filled the crack of his ass. And Mike thought that was a good idea. He says, and since you feel so strongly about it, that's your part.
That's your job.
So, as a matter of fact, he talks about it in his memoir, Makeup Man. That was quite a story, putting that makeup on him. I think it took me like 5 hours to put it on him completely, and getting it off was really not fun. But Leonard was amazing. I mean, when I talked to him, I said, if we do it this way, there's no taking a pee. There's no going to the bathroom. You're sealed.
Oh, no.
You can't take it off. It's impossible. And, some actors would have a heart attack and, be angry and stuff like that, and maybe not even do it. But Leonard was just, a trooper. And he was like, I'll stop eating and drinking the day before, which is what he did.
Wow.
So he was like sealed in for ungodly number of hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually, it's hard to imagine, but that's exactly what you would have to do. And you're just as much a reason why that part of the story came alive as he is in that dedication. That's fascinating.
Yeah. That was a wild experience. I had so much fun.
So the memoirs that also our audience is talking about, and you've kind of referenced as well, is this born of, are you writing it? Are you in the middle of writing it? And is it born of just the fact that you're a natural storyteller and just have to put it out on paper somewhere?
Well, it's mostly for me. I wish I had kept a diary. There's so many things that the day-to-day stuff just disappears after so many years, and you just remember the highlights. So I wish I had done, but I've been writing, I had a blog that a lot of people followed for a while called the Drex Files, and I have my Facebook page where I post articles. I enjoy writing, and I have a flair for it, I think. People respond to it like I do. And so I'm well into it. I mean, I think I'm up to about 300 pages, and I don't think I'll be done with it till the end of the year, and then I have to go back and cut it down to only the best. It's not going to be an art book. It's not the art of Doug Drexler. For me, I don't know. That's not, I wouldn't mind seeing that, but that's not an exciting book for me,
And that would be something for someone to do that admires your work, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been approached for it, and it may never, happen, which is fine. I imagine it would be difficult to do a book. Getting the rights, like if it were to feature stuff I did for Star Trek, Paramount is going to be on top of that as far as, they want ownership, and they want a lot. They want money, for
yes.
Even if you worked on it and it's your work,
They're very, very litigious and precious about the Star Trek work.
And those of us that follow you on social media, I think we're getting, in effect, a little bit of a sneak peek. If you aren't following Doug Drexler on social media, please do, because the stories that you tell and the insight that you have over the course of your career, I just it reads in such a way that I look forward to your next drop.
Well, I think that I want it to be fun. And so it's anecdotal in that every story in it that I tell has a punchline to it, something, the way it ends up is funny or, ironic, and you can see that I've written articles about LOL, and there was one article I wrote called The Butt of the Joke, where I had to paint John Delancey's ass in front of the whole crew.
You mean like paint a representation of his ass, or like use his ass as a canvas?
No, yeah, his ass.
Did you have to shave it first?
Unless he shaved it before he came in. Well, I was working, that we had a makeup room on a stage behind Stage 9 that was like a shack almost. And I was in there one day, and Mike Westmore comes in and says, the union doesn't have a body makeup artist, and we need a body makeup done. So that means he gave me a pancake and a wet sponge. He says, go down. I'm hoping it's some beautiful starlet, but it was John Delancey. And I go into his makeup trailer. He's on the phone arguing with somebody.
Doug, I don't know if this has been trademarked yet or not, but in the chat, I see a potential title called the Drex Files. Don't know if that's something you might.
No, that's what he was saying. Is
that what it was?
That's his blog.
The Drex Files. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what. I'm not going to figure out a name until I need to. I mean, I'll probably ask people on my Facebook page for suggestions. You never know.
Sure.
Well, and the hard part is it's such a moving target for you because the story isn't over yet, and if we could move forward and start talking about your time on the Orville.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the Orville.
I know that was like we usually end up talking so much Trek with the Orville folks that are on here that we got to split it into a two-parter, but we don't have that luxury today. So how did you end up getting involved with that production?
Well, I always felt a little bad that they did the Orville and they never approached any of us when I felt that they were kind of being inspired by what we did. It wasn't like they were trying to leave anybody out.
Right.
What usually happens is when an art department comes together, you bring people you've worked with before. That's what you want. You want a team that, so I had never worked with any of those guys, and I don't think they hadn't heard of me because they're not Star Trek geeks, although Robert and Stephen familiarized themselves with the show because Orville is very influenced by Next Generation. And
so that's Stephen Lineweaver and Robert Strohmeyer. Yeah. So they were not they were two non-Star Trek alums. I think Stephen started working with Seth on Ted.
He's been working with Seth for a while.
Yeah, and A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah.
So unlike Brannon Braga, who was a Star Trek alum, brought in as executive producer. Those two.
Goodman, Andre Bormanis.
Right,
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
There were a number of it was old home week for some of us, But anyway, I had been doing. After Enterprise ended, I had been doing Gary Hutzel, who was a visual effects supervisor on Next Generation with Dan Curry and Deep Space Nine, ended up going to Battlestar Galactica. And I had watched the first season of Galactica while I was on Enterprise. And Gary had been after me for years to come with him because I was one of the early guys who was doing CG stuff when they were still using physical models.
Wow.
And he came in the art department one day and saw me, using Lightwave, which was the program they were using on the show. And I could see him back there going, mm-mm. And then one day he comes in and says, do you think a guy like you can make a spaceship for a guy like me in a computer? And I think that's exactly how he said it. And I was like, hell yes. And, he borrowed me from Mike Okuda for like a week. I was over at Image G and we, built a spaceship. I'm still learning, fairly primitive, but I had such a great time with him because Gary was funny as hell, we'd be laughing all the time. And I remember when we were done, I said, gee, I hope that was really fun. I hope we could do this again. And he said, be careful what you wish for.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
With him on Battlestar Galactica, he said he was going to drag my bleeding corpse behind him all the way.
That's visceral.
That's not bad, yeah. And so I did visual effects with Gary for like 11 years or something like that. And when Gary died, I was not interested in doing visual effects. Visual effects is really hard. The hours are as bad as makeup. There's no union to protect you. So there's no pension. Healthcare is like tricky. And so I had been at Foundation Imaging on Voyager for a couple of years as a neophyte, a novice, really. And by the time I got to, I didn't, I enjoyed myself, but I was like, oh God, there's got to be a better way, and I went back to the art department from Foundation Imaging when they were doing Enterprise. And Gary, boy, this is convoluted. Well, anyway, ultimately, Gary passed. I didn't want to go through visual effects. I only was doing it for those years because I was working with Gary.
Right.
It was fun, and we always had a great time, and he gave me opportunities that if I was at one of the visual effects houses, I probably would never have gotten. I was a supervisor with him. I was to the point where, like, the art department of Battlestar Galactica let us design anything we wanted. They didn't want to design the spaceships. They were like, if you guys want to do it, please. We have our plate is full anyway.
Wow.
And so we were designing entire episodes. When we did Blood and Chrome, we designed all the designs in there were done by us in the visual effects department. So I didn't want to do visual effects anymore after Gary, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I wanted really to get back in the art department. And they were getting ready to start season 3, and the person who was their graphics person was having a baby, so she wasn't available for the show. And my buddy Jeff Mandel, who was on Star Trek, who we were kids together in New York, he knew Robert Strohmeyer, and he recommended me for the job. And I came in to meet Robert and Steven at 20th Century Fox, and that they weren't familiar with me at all. I had an art station page, and actually Robert told me, he says, I don't tell people this usually, but when you came in and we were looking at your stuff, I was thinking, oh, we are so lucky.
Wow.
Because I know the stuff.
Right.
Not only do I know starships and stuff like that, but I understand graphics. I've been involved with so many different facets of making a show like this. So he said to me, if you want the job, it's yours. And he said that he told me later, he says, I never tell that to people. I let them sweat it out for a couple of days. So I ended up, it's a little bit of a drive for me to go to 20th Century Fox, but, it was a wonderful art department, everybody in it. The art department was more like Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. Those art departments were kind of small. The art department on Picard was immense, the number of people.
Wow.
I mean, they had numerous illustrators on the show. On Enterprise or Deep Space Nine or Orville, there was, really one illustrator. We had an assistant art director, Kit Stolen, who is a designer in his own right. So, he would design something. He designed a lot of it, actually. Kit had a lot to do with the design. I came in doing graphics, but then when they learned that I could do CG and build things in the computer, and I was, designing sets too, which is fantastic. I have a lot of, when I watched the show the first time, and if you look at Mike's background image, if you look at the show in the first 2 seasons, there was nothing back there. It was just like beige carpet.
It was beige carpet that was supposed to, inside the world of the Orville, it was a CO2 scrubber. It was like a plant-based thing was their excuse for the beige carpet on the wall.
Well, it was like when I watched the show, I'm like, and Robert and Steven I don't know if Robert was there then, but they're both amazing. But, I just happened to have spent so much time on Starship Bridges and how they work and why they work, that you don't have a blank wall behind the captain's head.
Right.
Because at almost any shot is going to be looking at Seth or looking at the main viewing screen.
Right.
And all the cool stuff is on the sides of the bridge. And the only time you're going to see it is when somebody reports something,
Right.
I mean, on Star Trek, we always put a Master Systems display back there. Or anyway, when I watched the show, and this is not to insult anybody, but I remember Dorothy saying, the back of the bridge looks like a Fava shoe store. I mean, I could just see
Fava. I think is that just an East Coast thing, or were they everywhere?
Well, it couldn't have been East Coast because Dorothy's from San Jose, and she said, but I was like, man, that's the first thing I would want to do is something with the back of that bridge. I didn't design those inset panels on either side. And I'm not a big fan of the circular interfaces. Those don't work for me because from a distance, they just become blobs, When they brought me in, they had been designing stuff for that archway, which existed already. And they were doing kind of science fiction-y stuff, like putting, holographic material that was lit up blue and, And Seth was really, no, that looks like a discotheque. He didn't care for it. I did, Stephen, based on some illustrations that were done, wanted to have a couple of layers of plexi with side lit, ground in plexi that would catch the light. And well, anyway, it was a science fiction design. It wasn't functional. It wasn't aircraft logic, and everything that they did was being shot down by Seth. And then finally, I remember Stephen explaining to me what he wanted one more time. And I'm like at a point in my career where I don't say, yes, sir, I understand what you mean.
Right.
What the hell was he talking about? I don't, admitting that I don't understand you, I don't have a problem with that after 43 years in the business,
Right.
And he's explaining, and sometimes I can't understand what Stephen is getting at. And he said, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no. I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm very slow, I guess, but I do not understand what you're asking for. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, just do what you think is right. And
wow.
so
love it.
That's how that, all that stuff on the arch back there evolved. I mean, I think I did maybe 12 different versions of it.
Is that the ideal leadership style when somebody's managing somebody with the creative potential, the creative, high output creativity that you have? Just be like, you go, I'll see.
Well, he was wise to do that, Yeah. I think that a good leader knows when to let their people go.
Right.
You can't know everything. You can't understand everything. The production designer should realize that to be a good production designer, that you're bringing in people who know their stuff. And if you have some ideas, you explore those things. But ultimately, if someone is known for something, you say, it's not crazy to let me go because I have so much experience. It's a whole different story if you're bringing in someone who's never done this before. Because if you're not into it and you don't love it and live it, you don't understand it. And that's why, for me, those circular graphic things make no sense. They go nowhere. They just go in a circle.
So
I was doing circuitry on the ship in season 3. Robert says, well, we have these circular things. I go, but those really aren't circuits. They don't go anywhere. They're just, Robert pretty early on was like, yeah, Doug, you know what you're doing. I think it occurred I think we had this moment on the shuttle. I had done all the consoles, and one of the things we always did was to have hot spots and cold spots where there's activity and there's no activity. You don't have every button lit up. You block a third of them out to give the impression that things are happening and it needs your attention over here. Here, nothing's going on. And I remember Robert saying, well, why do we have blank spaces? And I explained what I just said to you. And I saw Robert go. And the only problem I ever had was, when I started doing the panels, I started working the systems out and giving them names and what they did and stuff.
Wow.
And Seth didn't like that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he did not. Now, one of the great things about Star Trek is the tech. When you look at the panels, you go, wow, this is what this is, and that's what that does, and the thought that goes into it. But on the Orville, I really wasn't allowed to do that.
Is that because he wanted to, did he want to be the one that named those things? Or
if the name was on it, then he was limited to what he could do.
Oh.
Which never was a problem on Star Trek, ever. As a matter of fact, it helped the actors believe in the ship.
Sure. Think about it. If you're pressing the button in order for it to accelerate, for my simple brain to just think of that one thing, you at least have a rote position that your hand is familiar with now because you're guided towards that.
Well, when we did Generations, I guess, and they were on the Enterprise B, and the gal who played Demora Sulu's daughter, she wanted to know how the panel worked. And that was because she looked at it and she said, wow, there's more here than meets the eye. And Mike and I came down from the art department and explained to her how it works, what kind of style you could have. You don't have to press buttons. You could slide your hand along something, and you could see her on screen working it, you know.
How cool.
Yeah. So on the Orville, almost I was not allowed to use words anymore. I was told that I had to only use numbers, which was a big disappointment for me because I like working these things out.
Sure.
But it still was fun. I didn't have a big problem with that. That's the way. I mean, for instance, you'll notice there's a lack of labels on the Orville, systems labels and stuff. If you look at, especially, when Mike Okuda was working on the shows, that we did very, interesting system labels that made you believe that, this panel comes off here and you're going to find stuff underneath it. And
yeah, were you tempted to just put a DNGN label anywhere just to
GND?
Just does nothing, goes nowhere, just to call it back to the Jeffries tubes?
Yeah, I mean, I put GNDNs all over the Orville, and I have the number 47 all over the Orville.
Oh, that's awesome.
Things that even Seth MacFarlane doesn't notice,
So I think I don't think everybody realizes how much the show leveled up for season 3. And
it really did.
I think obviously you were a tremendous part of that.
Well,
not only with the bridge design, I
helped a little.
And money goes a long way.
Yeah. The shuttle bay floor redesign looked.
What was?
But the shuttle bay.
Oh yeah, for me that was like, because the shuttle bay was one of those things on the show. I'm like, wow, look at this big shuttle bay. This is real. It's not a CG.
Wow, sure.
The graphics on the floor made no sense to me at all. You see, I think that when you look at the floor, it should tell a story that fans look at it and go, "Oh, that's obviously a lift," and that's obvious, And when you look at it and there's just like nonsensical lines on the floor, it's like, what are they trying to pull here? This is all science fiction baloney, The hangar bay floor looked like, and Robert and Steven knew it. And I don't know if they got a note from Seth or just on their own. That was one of the things they wanted to do.
Wow.
Season 3. And I'm the perfect guy for it,
Oh, yeah.
I did that back of the bridge thing. And then I went to the shuttle bay. And if you look at that shuttle bay, you can see the actions and things that take place there, As a matter of fact, there were these blocky things in the corners that no one knew what they were. And I said, I think that those are ambulatory little tractors in a way. They could go out and pick things up and move them around.
Like automated dollies, essentially.
Yeah.
I thought it just provided a little bit of privacy for the P corner, but
is actually,
that's kind of a deep cut.
They said that's actually the urinals are there, But the other thing is that the fighter, I had a special lift that was shaped like the fighter that when it came in. But what you don't know is that lift doesn't go down. It's hinged and does this, and the fighter slides down. And you could also fire them out of there one after the other if you wanted to.
That's pretty darn cool. That was one of the coolest reveals in season 3 too, was that little fighter.
Well, the fighter and the shuttle, which I hated the shuttle from season 1.
Sure.
If you're going to have a big window on a ship like that, it just can't be not see-through glass. No one believes it anymore. You could get away with that, 30 years ago. But now you need to see, characters in there, or at least limit the, the window.
Yeah, the new shuttle and the Pterodon look amazing. Little shameless plug for Master Replicas. The season 3 shuttle is, I think, available on pre-order right now. I know I paid for it. I don't know if I got it.
Master Replicas bought the stock out from Eagle Moss.
Right.
They don't have the license to make models of those things, but they have the stock.
They have what's left. Yeah.
They have what's left. They may be working on trying to get it, but at this point they don't.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll work it out. It's a shame because we've got Orville stuff, and Picard has a lot of cool ships. That need models.
Right.
They do. They need models, man. These shelves ain't going to fill themselves. Yeah. So, hey, let's, I want to ask you a little bit. You seem to be consistently optimistic about a season 4. Talking to some other folks, they are as well.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't come from any kind of official announcement from anybody. This is just my feeling, I hear through the grapevine. I know Seth wants to do it. Last I knew, they had scripts a year ago for season 4.
And I don't see why not. It's one of those things that if Star Trek can keep on coming, if Picard can keep on coming, there's a desire for it. I think the challenge is how much love, time, and money went into this last season. And conjuring that up again to keep it up at that level has got to be difficult.
Well, I mean, I have no idea whether this is true or not, but I suspect that there's going to be major upgrades to everything for season 4.
Sure.
I mean, the sets were totally torn down at 26. The sets don't exist anymore. And if you're going to rebuild sets, I would hope that we would take advantage of that, and refit stuff. And from what we've learned in the past, I hope that if that does happen, I hope they include me, in the design and layout of things on the ship. Because
just not naming things, though, Doug.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to.
Just well, I would just make sure that the line, "This is almost an entirely new Orville," makes it into the dialogue somewhere, just as a throwback to the motion
what they
picture.
want to do is refit the ship so it's still the Orville, but it's been in dry dock for 6 months being refit.
Who doesn't love an updated ship? And we just, those egregious shots of watching the ship as they get into the dock. Those are great.
Now, one of the episodes that we thought would be filmed, produced, if in a hypothetical or I think maybe inevitable, imminent season 4 is the novella Sympathy for the Devil, which started off as an episode, as a script that didn't get filmed due to restrictions with COVID.
Were you?
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Mean, they had been to like Czechoslovakia or Budapest, or they were going to shoot on location. They had a location scout from there who was in the office. They were working it out where they were going to shoot. And then COVID hit, and it just totally disrupted all kinds of travel and going anywhere. It was like that. I was very excited because I'm a World War II history buff, and this show takes place in Nazi Germany and before Hitler even takes over. Just the first echoes of Hitler are happening. And so for me to take a universal European street and do all the signage and stuff to look like 1938 or, Germany was really, really fun, really exciting. I love doing that.
Wow.
I had heard that Seth was going to do The Winds of War, but I haven't heard anything about that in like over a year. Boy, would I love to be on that with all those Navy ships. Wow, that would be amazing. So yeah, that's an incredible show, and I hope that we get to do it. I hope we get to do it. It's a, Gene Roddenberry would have been proud of that one.
Yeah, it's available on ebook only. They didn't publish any books, but I got the Kindle edition, and there's an audiobook also through Audible that Bruce Boxleitner, who Jessica and I had a chance to chat with at the Saturn Awards, narrated expertly. So that can give you an idea of the story. But Seth told us that he was because of what happened with Majority Rule, by the time that got written and produced and aired, Nosedive by Black Mirror had come out like a week before that. And he felt like he didn't want anything like that to happen again. He wanted to be able to point to something like Sympathy for the Devil and say, I wrote it. I published it 2 years ago. I didn't copy this from anybody. It's mine. So that was sort of the impetus for the novella coming out when it couldn't be produced as an episode. But that's still the ultimate goal is to produce it as an episode going forward.
There's no doubt that probably ended up being one of my favorite episodes. There was another one that kind of reminded me of it a little bit, Twice in a Lifetime.
Yes.
That I cried when I watched that. Of course, I was going through a lot of emotional. I'd lost Dorothy, and but the whole idea of having someone ripped away from you, so hard. Where he's told that, and they're, I saw the second season Picard, and they left people behind in the past, like, no big deal. But in the episode of Orville, when, Seth and, what's her name, show up at the airport.
Right.
They're like all business. They're like, you're coming back, and you've broken so many rules of, and
at that point, it's been 10 years. Yeah.
and he pulls out a weapon and says, "And I will kill you."
Yeah,
I am
they
not
showed up at
leaving
when they
family.
showed up with Tala later at the house. Jessica Zor as Tala Kiali, making no bones. We are taking you back by force.
Well, but they didn't, and they said, "Well, we're just going to go back and do this again, so we arrive earlier."
Yeah.
And when they're back on the ship, he's like, "Really?"
I thought that was funny because at the end they tell him the story that he actually had a family with
He wasn't
the
upset
love
about
of
it
his
because he had
life,
no idea.
right?
He didn't experience it.
But
Exactly.
Laura, who was the love of his life, who had been pining over ever since Lasting
She
Impressions.
was the minuet.
Right.
Remember Minuet?
And then he was just like, his reaction was, can't believe I did that stuff. Weird,
Yeah,
right?
I know. He's my favorite character. I mean, I find that Seth is kind of a glum captain. I'm not sure why. It's like there's something bothering Ed Mercer.
Sure.
It's all those old wounds, Doug. Old wounds.
Yeah, something weighing on him a lot, especially in season 3, Everyone on the show is, as a matter of fact, Scott came by with one of the producers and stopped at my desk. I didn't realize it was Scott. Just like talking to him, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're
So cute.
Seth MacFarlane is very shy. I mean, he passes by my desk every day and now hardly looks at me. And I think he's a performer. He could get up and sing in front of people and stuff like that. I think that otherwise he's kind of, I think he's shy of me. I mean, he's followed my work since he was a kid, or he just hates me and doesn't want to talk to me.
Well, it's that, what, we didn't want to tell you, but we're no. You know what? It strikes me as the classic, he's introverted, a geeky introvert, and you're an extrovert, and you can only expend so much energy with I'm ambiverted. So one of my greatest big explorations in life has been to understand the introvert because I'm so extroverted naturally. And so that would be my assumption. Doug.
My makeup partner from the old days, John Caglione, was on the original Saturday Night Live with Aykroyd and all those people. And Steve Martin was very big at the time. And he told me that when Steve wasn't on stage, he was not funny. He was just,
right.
I've heard the same thing about Will Ferrell too. Like something about him, it's all on stage
when you're performing, and then otherwise you kind of.
It's their profession. I think, Doug, that the reason Seth's quiet around you is because he's intimidated by your awesomeness,
my extreme beauty.
But hey, we got about 3 minutes left, and there's a huge question I want to ask you.
Did we talk about the Orville?
I don't even know.
I think we did, but I want to ask you about how important is it to you? How important should it be to everybody to do exactly what you did and reinvent yourself every number of years, to change with the times, to adapt to new technology? Like what can you say to people that are kind of coming up on that phase of their life where it's like you can either get cemented into doing what you're doing, or you can reinvent yourself and take yourself to the next level?
It's easy for me to say, oh, you should slide sideways and try other things. And I think life is a smorgasbord, and that for me, I can't imagine it doing it any other way. But most people I know find a career and they stay with it and they don't move over to other stuff. I just found that I would get to a point where I would be repeating myself, and I'd rather I want to continue. Listen, I've done all kinds of movies, but when it's come mostly to television, I've been lucky to be on spaceships for the last, 30 years. And that's what I wanted to do. And I don't really want to, I actually went and did graphics on a show before Orville hit called Good Trouble, about two gals who are living in LA, two chicks, and they're, dating all kinds of boys, and one works in a law office. And I was like doing screens for all the screens in a law office and had a production designer who wanted every page to be absolutely authentic. There's no way you're going to read it in a million years. But meanwhile, I have to have every paragraph relate to a case and stuff like that. And
wow.
I was like, oh, God. I was happy to have work, but it's just not my thing,
What an interesting choice.
I'm a person, But yeah, I would listen. I think anyone who doesn't, if the opportunity comes up to do other things and you don't, I think you're crazy.
Because that's a window opening, right? Some like you step through it, see if you like it, and then move forward through it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was that one of the things I enjoyed, I came to a point in makeup where I'm expected to know everything now. I have an Academy Award, and I didn't like that. And when I went to the art department, I suddenly it was a really comfortable place to be. Well, he never been here before. He doesn't know anything. I needed permission to be stupid, and as long as I was doing makeup, I couldn't be stupid. I had to know everything about it at this point.
And that's why we're talking to you today, man. And thank you. So we got about 15 seconds left. So Doug, real quick, where can we find you on social media?
We're not.
we can keep talking all day, man.
Well, you'll have to have me back sometime.
We will.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
You are the best.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.